Welcome to Inspired Artist Podcast with me, Porter Singer. I get to speak with Theo today, who goes by the name Entheo when he releases music. He released a track that I am in love with called Present Moment that I highly encourage y'all to go listen to, but not before you listen to this episode because it's really cool. And I had such an amazing epiphany at the end with something that he said. This one is full of a lot of really great little nuggets. So I hope you enjoy. Entheo means spirit within, and Theo is here to create music that supports and reflects on the modern day human's experience of awakening, healing, and integration. Theo has been writing, recording, and producing ambient, downtempo, and acoustic music for over a decade now and is just now emerging from a cocoon of transformation. Oh, he talks about this on the episode. This is a very cool transformation story, ready to serve the good of the whole in a bigger way. And also, he has released a collaboration with Eliza Ray today. Happy St. Patrick's Day, by the way, to everyone. Called Prayer of the Spheres. So you can listen to that wherever music is streamed and sold. All right, well, let's get into this. Here we go.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
I love how I get to travel to your studio. So we are watching this on YouTube. We are in Theo's studio. So that's awesome. Well, we're in my studio as well, but
Yeah.
also in your studio.
Yes, welcome, and thank you for having me in your studio. Yeah, these little creation stations where we get to explore our creativity and, make music that would typically have costed, thousands of dollars to rent a studio 10 or even 20 years ago.
Yeah, super blessed to be able to do these things.
Hmm.
Gosh, this reminds me of this. So I was listening to this podcast on air travel, and it's the Freakonomics one. They're doing like a 3-part series right now. And it really made me keenly aware of how many things I do not appreciate about flying. And you just
Oh
made
my
me
God.
like, you just brought like a little like sort of highlight to like, what you can appreciate about your recording studio right now. So thank
Yeah.
you.
That's funny you say that. I just traveled to Bali and the flights are just like insane. There's like a 14-hour and then a 7-hour and then a 2-hour. At least the way that I went. And but to get across the Pacific is
But the
just
fact that you can actually do that, it
it's
doesn't take you
incredible.
like a year by ship, you know?
Yeah, it is. It's totally
Yeah.
amazing. Watch movies the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and have like good entertainment. What were you in Bali for?
I went for a friend's birthday party. He decided he loves Bali so much. He just wanted to share it with everyone that was close to him. And so he invited us all.
That's
And
a
I jumped on it because I'd never been.
idea.
Yeah, it's an amazing place.
Was that your first time there?
Yes. Yeah,
Oh.
that's
Yeah, I
incredible.
haven't been to Bali either. I mean, that's a cool place for our kind of music as well. Like they are really into kirtan and conscious music and things.
Hmm. Yeah, I saw Yaima there
Oh, really?
right at the tail end. They were about to play a show, and I got to see them and just say hi
Oh,
real
cool.
quick right before I was hopping on my flight. So it
Do
was
you
really
know
nice.
them? Or did you know them? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, we would do shows with them back in 2012, just as they were sort of getting going. And me and my wife had a group. We were more of a collaborative project, and we would open up for them and play a lot of shows together and hang out and make music together, and it was a lot of fun.
Oh, wow, cool. Is
Yeah.
that stuff that you have under Entheo, or do you have recordings from that, or?
Yeah, our first album, Involution, was right around that time
Hmm.
where we had some, I think me and Moss had a few projects we were like considering collaborating on, but none of them ever took off. And I think we were just sort of producing side by side and learning to produce at the same time and sharing notes and samples and just figuring it out together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we
Moss
had a similar kind of aesthetic. Moss is yeah, the man in the group
in Yang.
who's the Yin Yaima. Yeah. Yeah, he's the producer and kind of behind the scenes, but like such a magical musical genius and such a humble, beautiful man. I really, really love him.
Oh, neat. Well, maybe you can connect me because I would love to have them
Sure.
on the podcast. I listen to their
Yeah.
music, but I don't know them personally.
Yeah, I'd love to.
So, Bali birthday party. And in the middle
Mhm.
of this or after this, you released your single?
Yes, I believe just like right when I got back last Friday, I released my first single on Beautiful Way Records, and it's a song that I wrote in Peru, um, back in like January 2021. I went down to Peru for a 30-day retreat at the Paititi Institute, and it's called the what was it called? Something True Nature retreat. And so that line found its way into the song. And yeah, it was a beautiful journey. And that song was the I wrote many songs when I was down there, but that was the one that came back with me. And so it marked a really big turning in my journey as a just a human, but also an artist, because it was such a deep time. I was really in a lot of shadow and really caught in a lot of polarization, and the medicine work that I did and the dream work, and at Paititi they work with San Pedro, ayahuasca, dream work, and breath work, and all four combined makes it really hard for you to hide from
Do you
your
mean
stuff.
simultaneously or
No, no.
okay?
So like one day, here you go.
Oh my Lord.
Take this. But yeah, it makes it really hard to like sort of have anything stay hidden. Like, well, where he was talking about how if you work with just one, you can still kind of hide from yourself
Mm,
and wiggle out of looking at certain things that we're, conditioned to avoid or would
mm,
be hard or painful to look at. So
mm,
it was really good, and I came back and sort of began this journey towards sobriety and towards like really letting go of some lifelong habits and patterns and undermining, ways of living.
mm.
So that song was really kind of pivotal. It's very simple. It's just about being in the present moment, but for me in my journey, it really marked a major turning point.
It is. It's deceivingly simple. It has like this like drive to the song. I mean, it's not just like one thing over and over again though. Like
Hmm.
there's like it feels very pop song in that way. It's like
Hmm.
you know, there's like a hook.
Yeah. I had a friend over today and she was like, don't take this the wrong way, but it kind of reminds me of like a Justin Timberlake, like spiritual
Mm.
pop song. I'm like, yeah.
Oh, it's interesting that you say that. Yes, when your voice came in at the chorus, that yeah, I wouldn't have said that, but I totally see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I get
And
that sometimes.
for
And
everybody that's listening and who doesn't know the title of this single
mm,
yet, I don't think we've said it. So
present moment. I hear these songs, I'm not going to name them because even naming them can like, ooh, like plant that seed. And then it's like, for my musical brain, it's so frustrating when I get a song stuck in my head that is just so like not good to repeat over and over. And actually like either it annoys me or it's just, either disempowering or um just not something I want to think about.
Mm,
So I thought, well, on the flip of that, if you create a catchy song with something really positive that improves your life, that is a healthy habit, like that's even using that same tendency or like the same power of music and rhythm and melody to like implant something that's empowering.
mm, I like that. For sure, that's the
Mhm.
that's the dream.
Mhm.
I like like that. Implant something empowering. So I'm curious about this retreat. If you feel like talking about it more,
Oh, that's what
that's
it's
really
called.
cool.
Embodying True Nature Retreat.
Oh, okay. We got there.
Yeah, finally.
That's really
Yeah,
cool.
what are you curious about?
Well, I'm curious what sort of like things were you hiding from yourself? If you want to share, you don't have
Hmm. Ooh, good question. Well, one of the things that kind of like just hammered me right away was um, the ongoing self-criticism of and disempowering story that I'm weak
to.
and sort of powerless. And so the way that that was brought up to the surface is the hike in is like no joke. It's like 7 or 8 miles. Most of that is downhill, and it's down this like huge mountainside in the Andes.
Wow.
And you're just going back and forth, switch back, and constantly going down. And by about mile
And you're
4 or 5,
with your luggage, I'm assuming.
with a big backpack.
Yeah.
And that was the problem. I underestimated the mountain and I overestimated my physical strength. And so what happened was basically my legs, the muscles that climb downwards, basically went into failure. Like they stopped working. And I felt kind of like a toddler, like learning to walk. Have you ever seen like a 1-year-old
Yeah.
learning to walk and they're wobbly and
I've had two 1-year-olds. Yeah, I'm
right. So
familiar.
you've seen the whole process. And yeah, it was like it was really difficult. I had such a hard time asking for help with my backpack. But at that point I was like destroyed. And I was like, and someone came out, this happens all the time, you know. So someone helped me with my backpack and I sort of
This
hobbled
happens all the
my way
time. Oh no.
into the camp and then just collapsed.
Yeah.
And it was just like so rough. And then we had ceremony either the next day or 2 days later, but it was really soon after arriving. So we had an ayahuasca ceremony, and the whole time it was more of the same sort of bringing up this pattern because I felt like I failed. I felt like I was weak. I was like really hard on myself. I felt ashamed.
Mm.
You know, I should have been able to do it. I didn't prepare more. And then ayahuasca's showing me this part of myself, this like drill sergeant that's like, because I had to like purge out both ends. And I kept getting up and trying to like find my way to like the bathroom, and but it wouldn't come out. So I'm just getting up and going, and then nothing's coming, and I'm going back, and I'm like, and then every time it was a failure, you know. It's like, what's wrong with you? And it was this drill sergeant kind of like intensity, like swearing at me, calling me names, and I'm just like sitting there like in the intensity of this. And she's like, this is how you are with yourself.
When you say she, ayahuasca?
Ayahuasca, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was like this sort of intense, like painful part of my mind, but then behind that was like this loving, like, you need to look at this. Like, this is how you are with yourself,
Yeah.
you know? And so it kept going all night, and I just left with this even greater feeling of like, oh, I screwed it up. Like I didn't do it right. I didn't purge. I didn't do, I didn't sing, I didn't do anything really. And
Sing?
well, they invite people to sing, or they invite you to invite yourself to sing, but nobody invited me to sing. And I just like was too shy or just like didn't have the strength to like,
This is like
um,
while you are
in the ceremony.
in this parent. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I just left feeling like it was a failure again.
Oh, interesting.
And we go to sleep and then wake up and everyone's sharing their experience and in the integration circle. And that was when my healing came. And it was the person right before me who shared, just brought in this real, like vulnerable sort of tenderness, and just her sharing sort of like started to crack open that really hard, like critical, judgmental shell. And I started to like sort of well up right as she was talking. And then of course we go out to break after them, and I'm just like cracking wide open on this mountainside looking out at the Peruvian jungle. It was just so beautiful, and feeling like this, the mother, this like tender, unconditional love of the mother. And then I go back in, and my share was just like mostly crying, and just telling and sharing about my experience. And my teacher, Roman, said that some tribes will formulate initiations for young people so that they can't succeed. So they'll make it so hard that they can't actually do it. Because the purpose of it
Yeah.
is for them to fail, but then come back to the tribe and know that they're loved and accepted still. It wasn't about succeeding at the thing. It was about knowing they're part of the tribe. And that was the sense that I had, was like, even though all that, even though I didn't do any of it right, I was still being loved and accepted by this group of strangers, really.
Right.
So,
Well, when you said the guy took your backpack, that's why I laughed. He took your backpack and said this
mhm.
happens all the time. I'm like, well, should there have been an email then, maybe? So was
There
this a
was,
setup? Oh, there
there
was.
was.
Okay.
And they said, try to pack light.
Oh, okay.
And I tried, but I still packed too much.
Well, that's really interesting. What do you know where that comes from? Is that just like you think that that's just sort of like downloaded male like expectations or something
A
from
lot of it was
yeah,
felt like
yeah,
Western male material,
yeah,
where it's like you're supposed to be strong, you're not supposed to ask for help, you know,
yeah.
you're supposed to be able to walk yourself.
Right. I mean, interestingly, I feel like that actually infects almost everybody. Like, I can't think of
Yeah,
a lot of
tough
women
up,
who are
you
willing to
know?
ask for help, because that's a sign of
Right.
weakness. Yeah.
So that was one of the bigger teachings. And then there was a lot that was ayahuasca, just like sort of, I could feel her like defragging my brain, like of all these like viruses that I had been indulging in on Facebook, and the fight and the polarity and just all this, like what I think are like entities that compel us to, you know, to get on there and to fight or to do whatever it is that brings that addictive sort of dopamine hit. And I feel like it was just pulling things out of me, because when I got back, I had no desire to go on Facebook and I haven't since. And I use it just for my business now. I don't really
Yeah.
go on and, engage in much conversation, because it doesn't feel generative or really beneficial. But for some
Yeah.
people, it's.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, yeah. Twitter feels, I don't ever go on Twitter. That's why I don't ever go on Twitter.
Mm,
It feels like the battleground
right.
app. But so what kind of like got you to that place where you were like, I want to go to the Peruvian jungle and defrag my brain?
Yeah. Well, I think my partner was very instrumental in that. I think she talked with my best friend and was like, Theo need, like, they knew, they saw me. I was lost. I was wrapped up in addictions. I was, on Facebook. I was doing music, but I wasn't engaged in a sense of purposeful and meaningful creative work.
Hmm.
It was sort of like on the side. And then I was using alcohol and cannabis and other things to like fuel my creativity. So it was a very confused and sort of destructive time where I was just barely hanging on, and she could see that.
Hmm.
So she conspired with my friend and was like, we should get Theo to Paititi because he had gone to Paititi twice, and we had both seen the transformation before and after both times, and he came back and was like, "Whoa, this is a different person."
Mm.
So we knew it was effective, and so when they suggested that, I was like, "Let's do it." I know I need something big for this, and we made it happen.
Cool.
So I feel really lucky and blessed to have not just people around me who can, you know, push me uh, into into something like that, but also the means and the way to get there.
Yeah.
It's a blessing.
Back to airplane travel.
Yeah.
How long was that whole experience?
It was like 30 days and then a day on either end of, or like 5 days on either end of travel because you have to fly into Cusco, then you have to drive to Pisac, and then you have to stay in Pisac where everyone gathers, which is a sweet, cute little town where like the Peruvian culture is just so like you're in these the Sacred Valley. So you're surrounded by these beautiful green mountains and the culture is like intact. You know, they have their traditions intact and their families and their way of life is just so wholesome and rich and it's just really just getting there was like impactful to come from America and like the mess that things were at that point. And yeah, so you have to get to Pisac and then you drive hours through the mountains to get to Paititi. And these guys are driving these buses, you know, flying around corners that like one wrong turn and you're off the edge of a mountain and you're basically dead. So it
What is
was,
it? Like two lanes, but not really?
yeah, like 1.5 lanes, and
Yeah.
someone could come around the corner at any point and got
Yeah.
to jostle.
Yeah. I've been on that road in Costa Rica, I think.
Uh-huh. Yeah, a long road that goes through many
Yeah.
countries.
I find those things really amazing though, because I think in the United States we're used to things needing to be so perfect in order to function, and so many people around the world are very comfortable with things not needing to look so perfect, but working really perfectly.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
he didn't drive off the road.
no.
Probably doesn't, probably still
Mhm.
hasn't.
Yeah, I know it's amazing. And in Bali, there's like, I think I saw two sets of traffic lights.
The whole time.
I mean, I wasn't paying all that much attention, but there was barely any compared to here. And you know, they're just going. It's like, oh, are you going or am I going? And they don't honk at each other unless it's to say like, hey, I'm here. Don't don't come, don't move, just
Yeah,
stay.
yeah.
It's not like aggro, like, hey, you just cut me off. Like it's it's really different and it's pure chaos, but it works because people are actually paying attention. They're not like focused or dependent on, you know, the lights and the rules to like guide their driving. They're just like, who's next? Okay, you go.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
noticed
they're
that
very
when I was
generous.
yeah, I noticed that when I was driving in Mexico. There was like
Hmm.
this intuition that was part of the driving that I wasn't used to that made me nervous at first, but
Yeah,
then you get into it and it makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. We probably could function with a lot less control
yeah,
measures.
right.
Yeah. So, but you got back from this trip a while ago with the song, yeah? Or was it how long ago was it?
It was like 2021. I
Okay.
spent Christmas and New Year's there, and I got back in January 2021. And
Okay.
um,
Okay, so I mean it's been like 2 years since you wrote the song. So like why now? Like what fueled this
mhm,
like we must record it? Because I know Mikey already talked about this like from his
yeah.
angle.
Oh,
On
yeah,
yeah,
nice.
because we
He
did
was
it
just on recently.
directly. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll tell you the story up until sharing it with Mikey because I wrote it on the charango. I didn't bring my guitar down because it was just too
What's a
big.
charango?
Charango is a 12 string instrument. It's not here in my studio, or I'll just show it to you. But it has a very small body, um, sort of like that big, and it's traditionally made out of the body of an armadillo.
Oh,
But they don't do that anymore because they're endangered, I think. So they, yeah, it's a small instrument that has a very bright kind of timbre because it's a small body and these short strings. But because there's 12 of them, it's this really rich sound. And it was the only instrument I had in my little hut. So I was figuring out chords and learning how to play it. And I figured out three or four. And um, one day that song just sort of came through. I don't exactly know how, but I have the recording on my phone of the original um, moment when it came through, and you can hear like the jungle in the background, and yeah, it was a beautiful moment. And I wrote a bunch of songs when I was down there, but that was the only one that really kind of stuck and came back. And so when I got back, I recorded it and started to produce it. I produced one version that was a little even more electronic and poppy, and and I sort of worked with it over the last couple years. And then when Mikey heard it, um, I sort of reworked it to make it even more stripped down and less of like synths and like there was a drop. I think I had like an electronic drop in the first one. I think I'm gonna remix it and put out another version. Um, but yeah, that typically happens with a lot of my music is I carry it for a long time and I produce it in a bunch of different ways. And I haven't actually released any songs um, under Entheo since maybe 2013, but those were very electronic driven. Like they have a chorus and then an electronic drop. There's not like songs with verses, like talking about a message or anything like that. So this is the marks the beginning of sort of a whole new chapter of a lot of music that I have that I almost lost because I lost a hard drive on my way back from Bali. I was like so dazed and confused from the long flight that I left a bag with a hard drive on an airplane, and I still haven't got it back, which is a huge bummer. But thankfully, I backed up my music and before I went, so I have all these songs. Some of them I've been working on for 10 years, and I'm going to be releasing a steady stream, one a month, probably for the rest of this year. So it feels really good to be like letting these songs out and sharing them.
do you release all of them under Beautiful Way Records, or are
We're
you?
doing three, and I typically don't work with labels, but I felt aligned with Mikey and Beautiful Way, and it feels good to be releasing with someone else because I'm sure you know as like an independent artist, it can be a lonely journey. And like, you're doing it yourself. You're doing all the music and then all the marketing and promotion, and it's nice to have someone to bounce ideas off, and hopefully it means that the music is reaching a wider audience than it would if it was just me.
Mhm.
But it's kind of an experiment. I'm just trying it out and seeing how it goes. And there's some songs that are just a little too electronic and poppy for Beautiful Way. So I'm going to be releasing those either on my own, or if I can find a label that vibes with it, then I'll do that. But I'll probably just do it myself.
Yeah, I like releasing things independently. I totally get the desire to have like sort of a community involvement too. That's really um,
Yeah.
an exciting proposition. So your title, your name, like your artist name is Entheo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you choose that moniker like after this entheogenic experience? Is
I chose that back in 2012. Um, my friend Elijah helped me come up with it. We were playing with names. I was like, I think I was going by Theo something back then as like a solo acoustic artist, but then I was getting into ambient music, and we were working with plant spirits and different, like this was back, in my late 20s and in the festival community, and like much like I'm a dad now and uh, family man, but back then it was like psychedelics were a big part of our life and journey and creativity and exploration, and they still are to some degree, but like not as much as back then. But Entheo actually means spirit within, and entheogen means to generate God within, to generate. So it's that's what they're for, is to generate an experience of God. And reading a really cool book called The Key to Immortality, or The Immortal Key, or something. And he
I've
talks
heard that.
about how entheogens were discovered, how LSD was actually a beer. Like it was the more organic, like DIY form of LSD was fermented in a beer. So it was like you were
Oh,
drinking beer and LSD. And
like
that was sort of, this
when
is
they
like
were.
pre-Christ. This is like,
Oh, okay, okay. This is not Timothy Leary's
no,
LSD. Okay.
no, this is
So
like way back before
wouldn't that
Christ.
be
And they,
a chemical chemical compound that was discovered in a lab?
it is that, yeah, the modern day version, but there's also a way to ferment it in like a drink, like an
Oh,
alcoholic drink,
interesting.
which they yeah, in this book he goes into like the deep history of how entheogens were used in the church by pagan cults and tribes to have a direct experience with God. And then when the Christian church basically made their version of the Bible for political control and influence, they're like, we need to get this psychedelic
Yeah.
stuff out of there, because that's actually connecting people to God. So they're like, we want to be the only way. We want to be basically the mediator between people, the community, and God. And so then it just became words on paper, and people weren't able to have that direct experience with God anymore. And so, you know, there's also another book called Stealing Fire where they talk about it,
Never read
where,
that.
part of our generation in this time is like we're reclaiming that access, that direct access. Like we're the generation who's like, leaving. I grew up going to church and Christian faith, and thinking like I had to go to church to like experience the thing and be a good boy, but then I was off on my own direction when I hit teenage rebellion. So
Mm.
that didn't last too long, but I yeah, when I found substances that gave me an experience of God, I was like, "Oh wow. This is something else."
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have had that experience, and realized that sort of ineffable experience of being connected to the oneness, the magic and miracle of creation in a way that just like you can't really describe it, but music can come close. Music can, especially singing together at festivals, dancing, or breath work, we're discovering all these entheogens that aren't substances, they're practices. And I think we're figuring out how we can continue building that bridge that was severed over the last, thousands of years. And we're rebuilding it and discovering something completely new in the process.
Yeah. Well, and I think to come back to what you were talking about during your ayahuasca ceremony is like so much of it in my mind has to do with just releasing thought patterns that are completely
Mm,
bogus. And, you know,
yeah.
you're already I mean, you are divinely connected to God. There is
Yeah.
no reason why you should not in this moment be connected to God, but like we have so many beliefs that prevent us from realizing that in, you know, in each moment. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And then
Yeah.
when you're raised in Christianity, which I was not, I always envied people actually who were, because it seemed like such a cool community. But I didn't
Mm,
experience the shadow side of it because it was always like, oh, look at all these, my Christian friends always have friends wherever they go because they just joined another
yeah.
church, you know. And I moved around a lot, and we didn't have like a built-in friend community.
Right.
But one of the things that I feel like is, that I've heard from people who have grown up in it is like, and I can imagine just coming from that worldview of like, I mean, you're bad to begin with,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
There's something
Yeah.
flawed about you,
Yeah.
essentially. Like that is a pretty whew, that's a lot. That's a lot
It's
to
heavy,
bear. Yeah.
but you can be saved. But it kind of reminds me of the Buddha's like Four Noble Truths. The first truth is that there is suffering.
Mm,
That's like I always read every Christian teaching I grew up with, whether it's Christ equaling Christ consciousness or sin equaling miss the mark. I always retranslate it
mm,
and reframe it in a way that makes more of an empowering understanding for me and my experience of it. And that's what original sin sort of translates to me as, is like there's suffering. Like we're all born into a life of suffering.
mm,
Step one, accept that. But there is a savior.
yeah.
And his name is Jesus Christ. But yeah,
Hallelujah.
different ways to different paths to liberation. And I mean, I still sometimes I'll put on Christian worship music because it carries such a vibe.
Mm,
It's just like
yeah,
that reverence and that spirit of worship of,
yeah.
and I'll just filter out um all the songs or the lyrics that are like, I need you, I'm broken, I'm nothing without you, which, I get, but I just don't really fully subscribe to that.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my favorite artists is Sarah Groves, who has the coolest Christmas album. I love Christmas. I like love all the Jesus songs and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a similar vibe in just like standard love songs too, you know.
Right. Yeah, which is like everything is true, has a truth to it in its own sort of dimension. And that like heartbreak, the longing for the other, for the beloved is like very, very real. And then there's also, songs of like self-empowerment, like I don't need nobody and I can do this on my own. And it's just music and lyrics, like we get to tap into that feeling of that. And Lizzo comes to mind, like
Mm,
such an empowered, like beautiful sweetheart, but she's such a powerhouse. I don't know if you've seen her
I
Instagram.
have, yeah. Yeah. I saw her for the first time live at the Grammys like 3 or
Oh,
4 years
nice.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, my son was like enamored. I was like,
Yeah.
"Whoa."
Yeah. Talk
Yeah.
about like revolutionary
Yeah.
art and
Yeah.
artists.
You have the experience of being on the production side and also on the
Mm.
artist side
Hmm.
here. Yeah. Do you have like a is there a different experience in terms of that like connection when you are producing something as opposed to like when you're writing something or recording something or
Connection with,
with like who you are?
yes. Yeah. And I was just listening to this great book again. It's called The Music Lesson, by Victor Wooten. There's just I love books and like and learning. just so many different streams of wisdom. And this like it's such a creative audiobook specifically because he brings in this other character, this sort of stage guru who teaches him about music.
Hmm.
And he talks about like instruments as like we put like this power in the instrument. Like I used to need my guitar in order to feel like I could sing because I learned to sing with my guitar
Hmm.
and I felt kind of like chained to it. Um, but then learning to like improv sing and sort of open myself up and then finding how vast like the world of production is to express myself, it sort of just blew all the it just blew it wide open because there's so many instruments in one box
Hmm.
like synths and I realized what he says in the book is like the music is in you
Hmm.
and the instrument is literally just an instrument to express the music inside you. And so he's saying in the book like you can play any instrument, you can play anything you want. He's like, but I don't know how. He's like, you don't need to know how, you just need to know the music inside you.
Hmm.
And so that's been the really fun journey of music production and sometimes overwhelming because there's so many options. It's like, how do I express this idea? And you can get lost in it. But I really love the Timbaland kind of technique where
Hmm.
you have a beat or a song, and then you just get on the mic and you listen for what's next. Like, what are you hearing in your head? And then you sing that as best you can. It might be a bass line or a beat or
Hmm.
a melody, but then you just sing that as best you can into the mic, and then you take that audio track and you translate it to MIDI, or you might record a guitar or whatever, but you get the purity of that idea that lives in your head out before it, because you, as you know, they can come and then just like fly away, and you're like, ah, like where did it go?
That's a really cool technique. I hadn't heard that before.
It's a lot of fun. It's really useful for just sort of staying in the creative flow because you can just like record a bunch of those in a row and then because translating the idea can get into like the slower, oh,
Hmm.
that's not the right sound.
Right.
That needs a little bit of this or that, and instead of just keeping the creative energy going.
Yeah, that's really cool. I
Mhm.
mostly just actually do that with my voice. So,
Right.
because that's mostly what I record. But
Uh-huh.
I'd never thought of, well, I guess I had thought about translating that to instruments, but I never thought of that as like a production technique. That's
Yeah.
very,
Do you produce your own music as well?
so
Or
I do
record?
produce, but I don't engineer. I don't like,
Okay.
well, I guess I do engineer my voice because I have to record my voice, but I,
Right.
yeah, I'd like to learn more about mixing my voice
Mm,
because I've been wanting to do some like a cappella type tracks.
nice.
Um,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna start experimenting with that a little bit, but no, mostly I've just been really blessed to have people who know what they're doing. I love production. Like I love to go, no, like play this, play, more of this or
Mhm.
whatever. But
Mhm.
in terms of like that, like ear for like, oh, it needs to increase at like the, you know, 10K
Right.
hertz. Like I don't hear that yet. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so much is like of the my friend Eric Nez is a amazing airbrush painter, and we had some just great like conversations about the ways in which visual art and music are similar and different.
Hmm.
And oh shoot, I went too far off on a tangent and I forgot what I was gonna say.
Um,
What were you saying before?
Painter, oh, like getting really precise about like the hertz that should get bumped up or
Right, yeah. So yeah, he talked about the gap between your taste and your skill, and
mm,
how that's for a lot of beginners, it's like there's, and for even me still, I'm still closing that gap between my skill and what I want it to sound like or what I hear in my head of what it could be.
Hmm.
And so much of closing that gap is like the trial and error of like, I think, to take your example, like if I boost that little thing by 10 dBs, it will bring out that more. Or I think this sound will work, this bass line will work on this. And you really don't know until you hear it in context
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
track and the other elements. And sometimes it could work if it was just a little lower, or if you filtered out just the high end. And it's just so much experimentation to actually know like what does that sound actually need, and what is the song as an entity really wanting to become, and kind of stewarding that.
Yeah, I just had this realization actually that my background in all this is from an electronic music perspective. That was the only composition major that they had where I went.
Ah,
And so that's what I chose. And I didn't really know that much about it, but I got to interact with a ton of equipment and like record and
mhm.
like surround sound and like do all these cool things. But it was all meant to sound very experimental.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of my background. And so I haven't had a lot of confidence in making something sound like commercial myself. So
Mhm.
I kind of rely on other people. But um,
Mhm.
I suppose, I mean, yeah, like trial and error. Yeah,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, and
Cool.
experimentation with bleeps and bloops and
Yeah.
like obnoxious bad sounding like things just for fun. It's really important to like the whole improv versus uh like curated and
Mm.
refined, and us writing a song line by line, or just like it's really important that we have both of those. I've found in my journey, like I just had a great little improv session this morning with someone here in Boulder. We're planning an improv workshop coming up, for anyone in Boulder who's tuning in.
Yeah, when's that?
That is, let me see, 2 weeks today, actually, March 21st. We're not sure exactly of the venue, but we'll post it on the One Boulder app.
Okay, well,
And
this will be out on St. Patrick's Day. Happy St. Patrick's Day,
okay,
everyone.
yeah,
So yeah, people will still have time to sign up for that. Sorry, so you're collaborating with this guy.
yeah. So we were doing some improv, and I hadn't done it in a while, and I realized like how essential it is for me to just allow myself to sing, to
Mm,
make sound, to like talk or sing about like how I'm feeling in my body. And it doesn't have to be poetic, or it doesn't have to be anything. It just like expands in some strange way, like my overall self-acceptance. It's just like I can accept how I am, and my voice and how I feel, because I'm singing it, and I'm letting myself sing how I feel and how I want to sing it. And it's in this weird way. It's just so
I'm like
liberating.
buzzing right now. That gave me, oh my gosh, that is so, yes, that is so
Mhm.
powerful. I've been really like noticing how when you feel, when you really feel, I mean, I've been talking about this for such a long time, but like
Mm,
really feel what you're feeling. I had this
mm,
experience today where it just shifted, like, and I was like,
mm.
wait a second, where did that go? And it was so cool. But I'm imagining, I'm like, singing it? That's
Right.
brilliant.
Yeah,
Of course.
of course. Yeah.
Wow,
And
thank you for that.
often when we're singing, especially with other people, the thing that's most on top is like, I feel shy. I feel afraid to sing. I don't know how to do this right. And like all this like crunchy, like constricting expectation that I should be feeling a certain way, and I should be doing this singing thing in a certain way.
Yeah.
And it's like the practice is really, I've come to relate to it as like it's meditation, but it's like vocalizing what
Mm.
you're noticing. And but it's the same sort of
Oh,
result
that's so
that
cool.
you just accept and allow, but then you're singing it at the same time. So it's very alchemical.
Vocalized observation. I
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that. Oh, wow. I love that. This is so exciting.
Yeah,
Wow,
piano.
that's a great note to end on, I think. Do you want to tell everyone where they can find you? And I'll have all this linked
Hmm.
in the show notes so that people can easily click on it.
Yeah, maybe I'll put like my link tree, which links to a bunch of offerings. I do music production, coaching and training where, we'll take a song either that I've done or that you're working on, and we'll just go into it and we'll create while we're learning. And it's a really fun way to not only like create something and I can share what I would do, but and
Yeah.
learn new functions and stuff like that. So I love doing that. And it has all my links to my new releases. I've got a couple remixes out, one with Heather Christie that I'm really that came out a few weeks ago that I really love. And then this present moment song that just came out last week. That is, yeah, I'm stoked about that.
Yeah, definitely go listen to Present Moment immediately. It's so good. And thank you so much, Theo, for doing this with me.
Yeah.
Do you have any, are you feeling complete, or do you have anything you wanted to share before we close?
I feel complete. Also, last thing is like, I love producing other artists. So if you're an artist listening to this and you're looking for someone to like bring your music to life, please reach out to me. I'd love to work with you and see what we can create together.
Cool. Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thank y'all for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for tuning
Thank
into
you.
the podcast, y'all. Please like, subscribe, rate, comment, whatever the platform you listen to podcasts on offers you as a way to let its algorithm know that you're enjoying these episodes. That really helps. Also, there's some links in the podcast description notes that allow you to support the podcast in a way that benefits you and us. So please check those out. And if you'd like to stay in touch with me, you can sign up for my mailing list at portersinger.com. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye.